Hello, I'm Zoe from Phoenix Life and Wellbeing Coaching, and today I want to talk to you about self-care. And my first question to you is to ask, what does self-care mean to you? Quite often when we think about self-care, we think about spa days, we think about chilling out with a cup of tea and a book, but these are all temporary things. These are all what we could call temporary fixes. They're short-term activities that help us to feel better, granted, but for a short period of time. So when we talk about self-care, it's really important to think about how we can do this over a longer term, how we can find those activities that we can do consistently that will help us to look after ourselves and help us to feel better. So it's really important to look at how you care for yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. And if you think of it like a Venn diagram, some of those things will overlap. Some of the activities that you might do will help you both mentally and emotionally. Some will help you mentally and physically, and potentially you'll have some activities that will help all three. It's really important to look at how you prioritise those activities in your weekly schedule. Quite often when we think about self-care, we put these in every month or periodically, or we wait until we get to that stage of feeling very stressed and very overwhelmed, and we then schedule in an activity that helps us to look after ourselves. But when we look at self-care in its entirety, when we look at self-care holistically, it's really important to make sure that we have things on a regular basis that help. If you think about the stress bucket or the stress container, it's really important to understand what fills our stress bucket, but it's also really important to make sure that we understand what helps empty that stress bucket, and that's a big part of self-care too. So recognize what's important to you, what helps you to empty what's taking up your headspace, what's creating that stress, what's creating that overwhelm, and what can you do on a regular basis consistently to help you to empty the stress bucket, because that is a big part of it. By definition, when we talk about self-care, it's the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's health, and that's mental, physical, and emotional health. So it's really important that we have that practice, that we make sure that those things are in place, that those actions are in place to preserve and improve it. So not just to look after it, but to make it even better. Now, one of the things that isn't talked about so much within self-care is the importance of self-kindness and self-compassion. And these things are really important because it is part of self-care for our mental and our emotional health. Self-kindness is showing kindness and understanding towards ourselves when we fail at something or when we hurt. Self-compassion is the process of turning compassion inward. We are very good at showing kindness and compassion to other people, but quite often we will be very critical to ourselves. So turning that inward, turning that kindness and compassion inward, being less critical, being more compassionate to ourselves is a big part of our mental and emotional self-care. So think about what you do. Think about what is in your diary. Think about what you have in your routine that is self-care for you. It will look different for different people. Make sure that it is scheduled in. Make sure that you plan for it. Make sure that you prepare for it, and make sure that you prioritize it.